Good morning, everyone. My name is Kailash Javdekar, and I'm a product manager for the service provider and enterprise solutions for Dell EMC. And co-presenting with me is Arkady.
Mr. Arkady Konevsky. I'm Director of Engineering for OpenStack Solutions and actually all service provider solutions for our organization.
And we'll be talking about how to achieve mile-high infrastructure from core to the edge with Dell EMC. And these are some of the solutions that we plan to cover as a part of our talk. So obviously we'll be talking about a Red Hat OpenStack ready architecture, our VMware solution, our UCP solution, our SCI solution, as well as our integrations with storage and container as well. So very quick, by show of hands, have any of you worked with Dell EMC before in terms of, or are you familiar with any of these solutions? Okay, we have some guys. Good to see that. Mostly greenfield, which is great. So we have been working with Red Hat for quite some time to have our Red Hat OSP ready architecture. It's a fully validated, integrated solution that we have, and we have had several releases working with Red Hat to get this solution out. We have our latest release coming up over the next few weeks or so. That's going to be our ready architecture 13.1. At a high level, it's a collaborative solution. So we work with Red Hat very closely to get, we have weekly calls, we have regular sync ups to have the best practices from Dell EMC side as well as Red Hat side, so that we get the best solution out that our service provider customers and enterprise customers can use to deploy OpenStack in a quick manner, as well as get their services up and running fairly quickly as well. It's a fully documented reference architecture. It includes the BOM. It includes all sorts of network architecture, all sorts of details for you to get up and running quickly. There's an automation framework that we include with this as well, which allows you to set up OpenStack within a matter of few hours versus taking days or weeks in certain cases. It is intended to be more of a conversation starter. It's a starting point, so it's somewhat prescriptive in terms of how the solution has been architected. But that being said, we have a professional services team, and we have our solution architects that work with you to understand what your real requirements are. And we can still use this as a baseline, but we can essentially extend that to really meet your requirements and to address your particular use cases. So that's essentially a ready architecture definition in a nutshell. We have our latest release of the ready architecture 13.1 coming up. Again, as I said, it's basically a collaborative effort between Red Hat and Dell EMC. From Red Hat side, it essentially includes RHOSP 13 Queen's release with the latest bits. It includes the latest Ceph release 3.2, includes the latest KVM and RHEL and all other components that are included as a part of RHOSP as well. From Dell EMC standpoint, it's essentially a combination of R640 and R740 and R740 XT servers. At a high level, the smallest stamp, as we call it, that we have validated is a 10-node solution that includes 3 controllers, 3 compute nodes, 3 storage nodes, and 1 admin node. For the compute node and the storage node, we are essentially using 740 XTs. And for the controllers and for the admin node, you essentially have a choice of potentially using either R640 or R740. In terms of some additional things that we are validating as a part of this solution, we are actually including Mellanox Connect X5, which is a 100 gig NIC as a part of this solution. We are also looking to validate OVS offload functionality as well, but that will most likely come after this initial release has been made. We are including S5232 ON switches from Dell EMC to support 30 to 100 gig ports that are required as a part of this solution. And from storage standpoint, Obviously, Ceph is the default storage that we have validated as a part of this solution, but we are also validating Dell EMC Unity as a part of this solution as well. And going forward, we'll also look to include additional Dell EMC storage components, such as PowerEdge and potentially VxFlexOS and other solutions as well. One thing I do want to highlight is, while 10 node is the minimum stamp that we have validated, this solution can absolutely be extended to multiple racks. And that's something we have actually validated and documented as well. But just from the initial validation standpoint, 10 node stamp is what we validate and what we have documented as a part of the reference architecture. Very quickly, want to talk about SCI as well, hyper-converged infrastructure. So in our previous slide, we talked about our ready architecture for OpenStack, which is essentially a two-tier architecture, if you will. So you have your compute nodes and storage nodes running on different servers. What we have been seeing from a lot of our service provider customers is an interest in hyper-converged infrastructure type of implementation as well, where you essentially have servers, where you essentially have compute and Ceph running on a single node. So obviously, it's a much compact implementation. It's much easier to manage, and it's much easier to scale up and scale out as well. So that's something we also have been validating as a part of our ongoing solution activity, and we plan to release that in the next couple of weeks as well with our Jetstream or Dell EMC ready architecture for RHOSP 13.1. We talked about Ironic during our keynote this morning. So obviously, us being an infrastructure company, automation and especially bare metal provisioning are especially critical to us. So Dell EMC has been involved in Ironic project for a very long time now. In fact, we have been one of the founding members of Ironic. There are three main drivers that we developed to support bare metal deployment and lifecycle management elements on Dell EMC servers. So we support IPMI, we support Redfish, and we support iDRAC as well. We are one of the few vendors that run a third-party CI, where we are continuously validating these drivers on Dell EMC infrastructure, just to make sure that everything is working as expected. In case there are any issues, we are continuously updating the drivers upstream to make sure that our customers are getting the best performance when using our Ironic drivers with the Dell EMC infrastructure. We also are now involved in bare metal certification as well. So Dell EMC, in fact, was one of the first vendors to have bare metal certification on our PowerEdge servers, as well as our DSS 9000 server servlets as well. So that's something that's highlighted over here also. From Dell EMC standpoint, we are big believers in giving our customers a choice. So we talked about our Red Hat OpenStack-based solution. We have a similar solution with VMware as well. Next slide, please. So we have, similar to Red Hat OpenStack, we have a ready solution for VMware vCloud NFV as well. There are essentially two flavors to it. There's a vCloud Director-based solution, and there's a VIO, VMware Integrated OpenStack-based solution. So for the purpose of this talk, we'll spend a little bit of time on VIO, VMware Integrated OpenStack. So VIO essentially is a certified OpenStack distribution running on standard VMware SDDC components. So if you take a look at this slide over here, at the bottom you have your standard VMware SDDC components, so compute, storage, networking, analytics. Those are essentially VMware vSphere, VMware vSAN, VMware NSX, and VROps. So it's really based on standard VMware components that a lot of service providers and a lot of enterprises use and love. But on top of that, we have really, working with VMware, they have really added a management server, which essentially builds a fully compliant, Queens compliant OpenStack distribution, and that supports all the OpenStack APIs upstream. So if you have any management stack running on top of this, or if you have any OSS, Mano type applications running on this. You can use standard OpenStack API calls to call into this infrastructure and access the functionality that way. Downstream, it's all standard VMware APIs. So downstream, everything is handled by VMware SDDC. Upstream, everything is handled by the VIO management layer, which essentially supports all the standard OpenStack projects. Water. And so just to kind of wrap up the whole VMware discussion, similar to RHOSP, there is a VMware ready solution as well. As we discussed vCD as well as VIO, but specifically for VIO, we are using the VMware components and Dell EMC infrastructure to build a fully validated solution and make it available to our service provider customers. So from VMware standpoint, it's essentially vSphere infrastructure, vSAN, NSX, and other VMware components as well as VROps. And from Dell EMC standpoint, it's essentially our 640, 740, 740 XT servers, 6010 networking switches, and we have actually validated big switch network BSN fabric as a part of this solution as well. So we give our customers a choice in terms of which OpenStack they want to deploy, with the end goal of you being able to deploy and get your OpenStack services running quickly to be able to run your workloads. So now we'll talk about some other solutions that we have in our portfolio, and Arkady will go through some of those.
So we have, on top of the OpenStack-based solutions, which Kyler just presented, we have several different, very custom-based solution targeted for the far edge, for UCP-based. And again, we have 2 of them already released and been used very actively by multiple customers. And we are upcoming a new generation of very small, different form factors for the VP1400. So it's much smaller, much more targeted for smaller shop, small distributions, and not larger sites. For those, on top of the hardware, which obviously we provide, we also have several different options what kind of software we pre-configured and pre-set up and validate together as a combined solution. So for all of those, we have an option of the VeloCloud, which provides the combined solution. And also ADVA, which provides you the single node OpenStack running with whatever workload you would like to put on top of yourself. And those are available right now, and very useful for the far edge. Not for the edge, the one which we talked about here as a part of the OpenStack community. We're moving from the core to the left to have a smaller and smaller site, but a single node ones which you put at the farthermost edge, which are not targeted for the site and telcos, but more for the shops who would like to have their own offering there. What happened?
It's a slide, it's a timer.
Okay.
Hopefully it will go back.
Okay, let's go back one more. So for coming back a little bit to the OpenStack side of the house, we had multiple different options for the storage, as we mentioned. And how do we, one of the things which we are incorporating them is a Ceph. So, but we know that Ceph is used not just as a part of the OpenStack, but also as a standalone. So we are creating the solution we call ready architecture, just like everything else, where we optimize the configuration and the deliveries for block storage, for performance, or for more balancing, where you don't have, you don't know all of the application you're going to run for that. You're trying to have a balancing act between the cost and the performance, and object storage primarily used for with a Swift API or S3 APIs for archival purposes or image storage or other things. So all of those are pre-configured. We have a very detailed performance going with each one of those. So stop by at our booth. We'll be happy to provide all of that information. And Paul Dardeau is giving a talk on Wednesday where he goes of using the Ceph for the databases applications. For the OpenStack, all of the Dell storage continuously have, as a driver upstream, we have the third-party CI continuously running for them. We obviously validate them, and we also do certification with the partners who have the certification for the driver as a part of that, both for Unity and for Manila. That work continues, and there is a lot more things happening as we go. I want to highlight that multi-attach and multi-pathing are two of the performance features which we are kind of driving across all of the things. Finally, there is a lot of talk about the container-based solutions, if you have seen the keynotes, all of them covering in different ways how containers are being done. So we have several different options for those solutions. So the OpenShift ready architecture is the first solution we are delivering, which is OpenShift on bare metal. It's in the current released version of the OCP 3.11. Again, we have several different variations of that, from the very small one node, if you want to get a little bit of the taste for that. By no means a production targeted configuration. Have a middle one, 6 to 9 nodes. Again, not for production, but it gives you the sense of how to separate all the pieces together and how to run them in a different environment and how to optimize them. And finally, the production version from 11 and up for whatever size you want it to do. The default configuration, default architecture scales up to 3x. Beyond that, your networking will have very special needs and will become a more custom-based solution. Again, stop by on our booth. We have much more detail on that, so this is just a small preview. Finally, we have other container-based solution with other distribution. The SUS one was just released recently, and there is another one we have with joint with Canonical. All of them have a different way of creating the containerized base application. We are not going to tell you which one you would like to do. I mean, all of them will work on Dell gear, and we'll support them all on Dell gear. If you look at the gambit of all of the different things which we have, from the bare metal containers to the OpenStack optimized for NFV workloads, to the Edge one, to UCP one, we have a gambit of different offerings which all work together or work independently depending upon what your needs are. And if you would like to customize them for your specific type of the workload you would like to do, we'll be happy to provide this level of service, which is available through Dell or through our partners. Let me stop here, and if you have any questions for us, for Kailash and myself, we'll be here throughout the conference, and please come and visit us at the Dell Technology booth. Thank you.
Thank you.